Hey everyone, I'm here to help you relax and drift off tonight. If you enjoy using these videos to fall asleep, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more calming content. Share where you're watching from and what time it is for you. I'd love to know. Now settle into a cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's start unwinding together. In the ancient, mist-shrouded village of Blackthorn Hollow, where the trees whispered secrets to the wind and the rivers ran black with the memories of the past, there existed a legend that had haunted the villagers for centuries. It was the legend of the Ring of Eternity, a cursed artifact said to grant its wearer eternal life, but at a terrible cost: the loss of all happiness. The ring was a simple band of blackened silver, its surface etched with runes that glowed with an eerie, otherworldly light. It was said to have been forged by a sorcerer who had sought to cheat death, but in his hubris, he had cursed himself and all who would wear the ring after him. The ring had passed through many hands over the centuries, each wearer lured by the promise of immortality, but ultimately undone by the curse. Some had worn the ring for years, their lives stretching on endlessly, while others had cast it aside after only a few days, unable to bear the weight of their sorrow. But no matter how long they wore it, the result was always the same. The wearer would live forever, but they would never know happiness again. Among the villagers was a young man named Elias, a blacksmith with a heart full of dreams and a soul burdened by loss. Elias had grown up listening to the tales of the Ring of Eternity, his imagination captivated by the idea of a life without end. But it was not the promise of immortality that drew him to the ring. It was the hope that it might bring him closer to his lost love, a woman named Serafina, who had died tragically years before. Elias had loved Serafina with all his heart, and her death had left a void in his soul that nothing could fill. He had spent years searching for a way to bring her back, to undo the tragedy that had taken her from him. And so, when he heard rumors that the Ring of Eternity had resurfaced in the nearby mountains, he knew that he had to find it. On a cold, moonless night, Elias set out for the mountains, his heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and fear. The journey was long and treacherous, the path winding through dense forests and over jagged cliffs. But Elias was determined, his resolve unwavering. He knew that the ring was his only hope, his only chance to see Serafina again. After days of searching, Elias finally found the ring, hidden deep within a cave that was said to be cursed. The ring lay on a stone pedestal, its surface gleaming in the dim light. Elias approached it slowly, his breath visible in the cold air. He reached out and picked up the ring, his fingers trembling as he slipped it onto his finger. At first, nothing happened. The ring felt cold against his skin, its weight unfamiliar but not unpleasant. But then, slowly, Elias began to feel a change. The air around him grew colder, the shadows deeper. He felt a surge of energy, a force that seemed to flow through his veins, filling him with a sense of power and vitality. But as the energy coursed through him, Elias also felt something else, a deep, aching sadness that seemed to come from within. It was as if the ring had awakened a part of him that had been buried, a part that had been waiting to be set free. He felt the weight of his loss, the pain of Serafina's death, more acutely than ever before. Elias returned to the village, his heart heavy but his spirit lighter, knowing that he had found the ring. But as the days turned into weeks, he began to notice something strange. The world around him seemed to lose its color, its vibrancy. The laughter of children, the warmth of the sun, the beauty of the stars, all of it seemed dull and lifeless. He realized that the ring was stealing his happiness, taking away the joy that had once filled his life. But Elias was determined to see Serafina again, to hold her in his arms and tell her how much he loved her. He knew that the ring was his only hope, his only chance to bring her back. And so, he continued to wear it, even as the world around him grew darker and colder. One night, as Elias sat by the fire, he felt a strange pull, a sense that Seraphina was near. He closed his eyes and focused on her, on the memory of her smile, the sound of her laughter. And then he saw her, standing before him, her form faint and translucent, her eyes filled with a mixture of love and sorrow. "Elias," she whispered, her voice soft and trembling. "Why have you done this? Why have you cursed yourself for me?" Tears streamed down Elias's face as he reached out to her, his fingers brushing against her cold, ethereal form. "I couldn't let you go," he said. "I couldn't live without you." Seraphina's gaze grew distant, as if she were looking into a past that Elias could not see. "The ring has cursed you," she said. "It has taken your happiness, your joy. You must remove it, Elias. You must let me go." Elias's heart broke as he watched her, the weight of his regret crushing him. He had thought that the ring would bring him closer to Seraphina, but instead it had only driven them further apart. He knew that he had to remove the ring to break the curse and set himself free. With a heavy heart, Elias reached for the ring, his fingers trembling as he pulled it from his finger. As he did, he felt a surge of energy, a force that seemed to flow through him, filling him with a sense of peace and clarity. The world around him seemed to come alive, its colors vibrant and its sounds clear. But as the ring fell to the ground, Seraphina began to fade, her form dissolving into the air. Elias reached out to her, his heart pounding with a mixture of love and sorrow. "I will always love you," he whispered, his voice trembling. And then she was gone, her presence a memory that would haunt him for the rest of his days. Elias stood there for a long time, his heart heavy but his spirit lighter, knowing that he had done the right thing. He knew that the ring was a curse, a tool that could only bring pain and sorrow. And though he would always miss Seraphina, he knew that he had to live his life, to find joy and happiness in the world around him. The ring of eternity remained on the ground, its surface gleaming in the dim light. Elias knew that it would always be a part of him, a reminder of the choices he had made and the lessons he had learned. But he also knew that he had found a measure of peace, a sense of closure that had eluded him for so long. And so, Elias walked away from the ring, his footsteps echoing in the empty streets. He knew that he would never forget Seraphina, that her memory would always be with him, a part of his soul. But he also knew that he had to live his life, to find joy and happiness in the world around him. The ring of eternity remained on the ground, its surface gleaming in the dim light. Elias knew that it would always be a part of him, a reminder of the choices he had made and the lessons he had learned. But he also knew that he had found a measure of peace, a sense of closure that had eluded him for so long. And so, Elias walked away from the ring, his footsteps echoing in the empty streets. He knew that he would never forget Seraphina, that her memory would always be with him, a part of his soul. But he also knew that he had to live his life, to find joy and happiness in the world around him. The ring of eternity remained a place of mystery and fear, a destination for those seeking answers to questions best left unasked. But for Elias, it was more than just a ring. It was a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always a chance for redemption. And as he walked away from the ring, he knew that he would carry its light with him, a reminder of the power of the human spirit to overcome even the darkest of curses. In the heart of a sprawling, labyrinthine mansion, hidden behind a tapestry of faded velvet and dust, there was a room that no one spoke of. It was not marked on any blueprint, nor was it mentioned in the histories of the house. Yet those who stumbled upon it, whether by accident or design, emerged forever changed. For this room had a peculiar and terrifying power. It erased memories, not just the trivial ones like where one had left their keys or the name of a childhood friend, but the deep, foundational memories that shaped who a person was. It was a room that devoured the past, leaving only a hollow shell in its wake. The mansion itself was a relic of a bygone era, a sprawling estate built by the enigmatic Alaric Blackwood in the late 19th century. Blackwood had been a man of immense wealth and even greater secrets. He had filled his home with oddities from around the world, strange artifacts, cryptic paintings, and books bound in leather that seemed to pulse faintly in the dark. But the room, the one that erased memories, was his most guarded secret. Some said he had built it to forget his own sins. Others whispered that it was a gift or a curse, bestowed upon him by forces beyond human understanding. Over the years, the mansion had passed through many hands, each owner adding their own layer of mystery to its history. But the room remained untouched and undiscovered until one fateful day when a young woman named Lila Harper crossed its threshold. Lila had come to the mansion as part of a research project. She was a historian specializing in the lives of eccentric figures from the past, and Alaric Blackwood had long been a subject of fascination for her. When she learned that the mansion was to be demolished, she had begged the current owner, a reclusive millionaire with no interest in the property's history, for permission to explore it. To her surprise, he had agreed, on the condition that she documented everything she found. From the moment she stepped inside, Lila felt a strange energy in the air. The mansion was eerily silent, as if it were holding its breath. The walls seemed to lean in closer as she walked, and the shadows danced in the corners of her vision. But Lila was not easily deterred. She had spent years exploring forgotten places, and she prided herself on her ability to remain calm in the face of the unknown. It was on her third day in the mansion that she found the room. She had been exploring a narrow corridor on the third floor, one that seemed to lead nowhere, when she noticed a faint draft coming from behind a tapestry. Curious, she pulled it aside and found a door, its surface carved with intricate symbols that seemed to shift and writhe as she looked at them. The air around the door was cold, and a faint hum emanated from within. Lila hesitated. Every instinct told her to turn back, to leave the door unopened. But her curiosity, that insatiable drive to uncover the truth, won out. She turned the handle and stepped inside. The room was small and circular, with walls made of a smooth black stone that seemed to absorb the light. In the center of the room was a pedestal upon which rested a single object, a mirror. But this was no ordinary mirror. Its surface was not glass, but a swirling, liquid-like substance that seemed to ripple and churn as if alive. Lila approached it cautiously, her reflection distorted and fragmented in its surface. As she stared into the mirror, she felt a strange sensation, as if something were pulling at the edges of her mind. Images began to flash before her eyes, memories, but not her own. She saw a man, his face twisted in agony, tearing at his hair as he screamed into the void. She saw a woman, her eyes hollow, clutching a child who faded into mist in her arms. She saw a boy, no older than 10, standing alone in a field of ash, his face blank and empty. Then the memories shifted, and she saw herself. But it was not the self she knew. This version of her was older, her face lined with sorrow, her eyes filled with a darkness that made her stomach churn. She watched as this other Lila raised a knife, her hands trembling, and plunged it into the chest of a man she did not recognize. The man's eyes met hers, filled with betrayal, and then he was gone, dissolving into nothingness. Lila stumbled back, her heart racing. The images faded, but the feeling of dread remained. She turned to leave, but the door was gone. The walls of the room seemed to close in around her, and the mirror's surface began to churn more violently. She felt a pressure in her head, as if something were reaching into her mind and pulling at her memories. She tried to hold on, to fight it, but it was no use. One by one, her memories began to slip away. When Lila awoke, she was lying on the floor of the corridor outside the room. The tapestry was back in place, and the door was gone. She sat up, her head pounding, and tried to remember how she had gotten there. But the memories were hazy, fragmented. She remembered finding the room, but the details were fuzzy, as if they belonged to someone else. She remembered the mirror, but its surface was a blank in her mind. And the memories she had seen, the man, the woman, the boy, were gone, as if they had never existed. She stood, her legs trembling, and made her way back to the main part of the mansion. As she walked, she noticed something strange. The mansion felt different, as if it had shifted in some subtle way. The corridors seemed longer, the shadows deeper, and there were gaps in her memory, not just of the room, but of her life. She couldn't remember her mother's face, or the name of her first pet, or the reason she had become a historian in the first place. It was as if pieces of her past had been erased, leaving only emptiness in their place. Over the following days, Lila tried to piece together what had happened. She searched the mansion for the room, but it was as if it had never existed. She pored over her notes, but they were filled with gaps and inconsistencies. And the more she tried to remember, the more she realized how much she had lost. Her memories were like sand slipping through her fingers, impossible to hold on to. As the days turned into weeks, Leela became obsessed with the room. She spent hours in the mansion's library searching for any mention of it. She interviewed the few people who had lived in the mansion over the years, but none could give her answers. And all the while, her memories continued to fade. She forgot the sound of her father's voice, the taste of her favorite food, the feeling of her first kiss. She was becoming a stranger to herself, a hollow shell of the person she had once been. But then one day she found a clue. Hidden in the pages of an old journal, written in a hand so faint it was almost illegible, was a description of the room. The author, a servant who had worked in the mansion decades ago, spoke of a place where the past was devoured, where one could be freed from the weight of their memories. But there was a warning too. The room did not discriminate. It took everything, leaving nothing behind. Lila knew then what she had to do. She had to find the room again, to confront whatever power lay within it. She had to reclaim her memories, no matter the cost. The room was waiting for her. She found it in the same corridor, behind the same tapestry. The door was there, its symbols glowing faintly in the dark. This time she did not hesitate. She stepped inside, the mirror's surface churning as if in anticipation. She stared into the mirror, and the memories came flooding back. Not just her own, but the memories of everyone who had ever entered the room. She saw their pain, their sorrow, their regrets, and she saw the truth. The room was not a curse, but a choice. It offered freedom from the past, but at a price. To reclaim her memories, she would have to take on the memories of others, to bear their pain as her own. Lila made her choice. She reached out, her hand trembling, and touched the mirror's surface. The room erupted in light, and she felt herself being pulled into the mirror, into the swirling void of memories. When she emerged, she was herself again, her memories restored. But she was not alone. The room had left its mark on her, and she knew that she would carry the weight of its secrets for the rest of her life. The room remains hidden in the mansion, waiting for the next soul to seek its power. And though its purpose is still a mystery, one thing is certain: it is not a place of forgetting, but of remembering. For those who enter are given a choice, to let go of the past or to embrace it, no matter how heavy the burden may be. And in a world filled with pain and regret, that is a gift beyond measure. In the heart of the forgotten valley, shrouded by mist and shadow, stood an ancient gate. It was no ordinary gate. Its iron bars were twisted into grotesque shapes, resembling the contorted faces of those who had suffered great torment. The gate was embedded in a towering stone archway, covered in moss and ivy, as if nature itself sought to hide its existence. Legends whispered that this gate did not open for the pure of heart, nor for the brave, nor for the wise. It opened only for the cursed. For centuries, the gate had stood as a silent sentinel, its purpose unknown, its origins lost to time. Villagers from the nearby hamlet of Black Hollow spoke of it in hushed tones, warning their children to stay far away. They called it the Gate of Woe, for it was said that those who passed through it were never seen again. Yet despite the warnings, there were always those who were drawn to it, those who carried burdens too heavy to bear, who sought answers to questions that could not be asked, who were marked by fate in ways they could not understand. One such soul was a young woman named Alara. She had not always been cursed. Once, she had been the pride of her village, a healer with a gift for mending wounds and soothing pain. But that was before the night of the red moon, when a stranger had come to her door, cloaked in shadows and reeking of decay. He had begged for her help, claiming to be poisoned, and Alara, ever compassionate, had let him in. But the stranger was no ordinary man. He was a sorcerer, fleeing from a curse he had brought upon himself. In his desperation, he had transferred his affliction to her, leaving her with a mark that burned like fire and a voice in her head that whispered dark secrets. Ilara's life had unraveled since that night. The mark on her chest, a swirling sigil that glowed faintly in the dark, seemed to pulse with a life of its own. The voice grew louder, urging her to do unspeakable things. Her fellow villagers, once grateful for her healing touch, now avoided her, whispering that she was possessed. Even her own family could not bear to look at her. Desperate for a cure, Ilara had searched every tome, consulted every wise woman, and even ventured into the depths of the forest to seek the counsel of the Fae. But none could help her. The curse was bound to her soul, and it would not be undone by mortal means. It was during her darkest hour that Alara heard of the Gate of Woe. A traveling bard passing through Black Hollow had sung a haunting ballad about a gate that opened only for the cursed. The bard's words had struck a chord deep within her, and she knew with a certainty that chilled her to the bone that the gate was her last hope. The journey to the gate was fraught with peril. The forgotten valley was a place of nightmares, where the trees seemed to twist and writhe as if in pain, and the air was thick with the scent of decay. Shadows moved where there should have been none, and whispers echoed through the mist, though no one was there to speak them. Alora pressed on, driven by a determination that bordered on madness. The voice in her head grew louder with each step, taunting her, warning her to turn back, but she could not, she would not. When she finally reached the gate, it was as if the world itself held its breath. The air was still, the mist parting to reveal the ancient archway in all its grim glory. Ilara approached cautiously, her heart pounding in her chest. The mark on her skin burned hotter than ever, and the voice in her head fell silent, as if even it feared what lay beyond. She reached out a trembling hand, her fingers brushing against the cold iron. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a sound like 1,000 screams, the gate began to open. The twisted bars groaned as they shifted, the faces carved into them, seeming to writhe in agony. A blinding light spilled forth, and Alara felt herself being pulled forward, as if by an unseen force. She tried to resist, but it was no use. The gate had chosen her, and there was no turning back. What lay beyond the gate was a world unlike anything Alara had ever imagined. The sky was a swirling vortex of colors, and the ground beneath her feet was made of shifting shadows. Strange creatures roamed the landscape, their forms too alien to comprehend. In the distance, she saw a towering citadel, its spires reaching into the heavens. It was there, she knew, that she would find the answers she sought. As she ventured deeper into this strange realm, Ilara encountered others like her, souls marked by curses, each with their own tale of woe. There was a knight whose armor was fused to his flesh, a punishment for betraying his oath. A woman whose reflection showed not her face, but the face of the lover she had murdered in a fit of jealousy. A child who had been cursed to never age, forced to watch as everyone he loved grew old and died. They were all bound by the same fate, drawn to the gate by the weight of their curses. Together they made their way to the citadel, where they were greeted by a figure cloaked in darkness. He called himself the Keeper of the Gate, and he spoke in a voice that echoed with the weight of centuries. "You have come seeking release from your curses," he said, "but know this, the path to redemption is not an easy one. To be free, you must face the source of your suffering and conquer it. Only then will the gate allow you to return." Ilara and the others accepted the Keeper's challenge, for they had no other choice. Each was sent on a separate journey, forced to confront the demons that had shaped their curses. For Ilara, this meant facing the sorcerer who had marked her, a task that would test her courage, her strength, and her very soul. In the end, Ilara emerged victorious. She had faced the sorcerer and broken the curse, though the cost had been great. The mark on her chest was gone, but the memories of what she had endured would stay with her forever. The gate opened once more, allowing her to return to the world she had left behind. But she was not the same person who had passed through it. She had been changed not just by the curse, but by the journey she had undertaken to overcome it. The Gate of Woe still stands in the Forgotten Valley, waiting for the next cursed soul to seek its aid. And though its purpose remains a mystery, one thing is certain. It is not a place of despair, but of hope. For those who pass through it are given a chance to reclaim their lives, no matter how heavy their burdens may be. And in a world filled with darkness, that is a gift beyond measure. In a small, dusty workshop tucked away in the corner of a forgotten village, there lived a puppet named Pin. He was no ordinary puppet. Carved from the finest mahogany by a master craftsman long since passed, Pin was a marvel of artistry. His joints moved with a fluid grace. His painted eyes sparkled with an uncanny, lifelike quality, and his mouth, though fixed in a permanent smile, seemed to hold secrets. But Pin was not content with being a mere puppet. He dreamed of becoming human. This dream was not born of vanity or a desire for fame. Pin had spent years observing the humans who visited the workshop, children with their wide-eyed wonder, lovers whispering sweet nothings, and elders sharing stories by the fire. He envied their ability to feel, to love, to experience the world in ways he could only imagine. He longed to know what it was like to feel the warmth of the sun on his skin, to taste the sweetness of an apple, to laugh until his sides ached. But most of all, he longed to be free, to walk out of the workshop and into the world, unbound by strings and the whims of others. Pin's creator, an old man named Elias, had been kind but distant. He had poured his heart into crafting Pin, but he had never treated him as anything more than a puppet. When Elias passed away, the workshop fell silent and Pin was left alone with his dreams. For years he sat on a shelf, gathering dust, watching the world through the grimy window. But then, one fateful day, everything changed. A young woman named Clara stumbled upon the workshop. She was a traveler, wandering the countryside in search of inspiration for her stories. When she saw Pin, she was captivated. "You're beautiful," she whispered, brushing the dust from his face. "But you look so sad. What's wrong?" Pin, of course, could not speak. But something about Clara's presence stirred a strange sensation within him, a flicker of hope. Clara, sensing his longing, decided to take him with her. "Maybe you just need to see the world," she said, placing him gently in her bag. And so Pin's journey began. Clara was a storyteller, and she carried Pin with her wherever she went. She would sit by campfires or in bustling taverns, weaving tales of adventure and magic, while Pin listened intently. Through her stories, he learned about the world beyond the workshop, the vast oceans, towering mountains, and bustling cities. He learned about love and loss, courage and fear, joy and sorrow. And with each story, his desire to become human grew stronger. One night, as Clara slept under a canopy of stars, Pin felt a strange sensation. His wooden body, which had always been stiff and unyielding, seemed to soften. His fingers twitched, and for the first time, he moved without strings. Startled, he looked down at his hands and saw that they were no longer made of wood. They were flesh and blood. Pin's heart, or what he imagined to be his heart, pounded in his chest. He stood, his legs trembling, and took his first step. It was clumsy and awkward, but it was his. He was free. But the transformation was not complete. By morning, Pin had reverted to his puppet form. Clara, unaware of what had happened, packed up camp and continued on her journey. Pin, now more determined than ever, vowed to find a way to make the change permanent. Clara's travels eventually led them to a mysterious forest known as the Whispering Woods. It was said that the forest was home to ancient magic, and that those who entered with a pure heart could have their deepest wishes granted. Pin, though skeptical, felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps this was the answer he had been searching for. The forest was unlike anything Pin had ever seen. The trees seemed to hum with life, their leaves shimmering in hues of gold and silver. The air was thick with the scent of blooming flowers, and the ground beneath their feet was soft and warm. As they ventured deeper, they encountered strange creatures, talking animals, glowing fairies, and even a tree that offered them advice in a voice like rustling leaves. Finally, they reached the heart of the forest, where a great oak tree stood. Its branches stretched high into the sky, and its roots twisted deep into the earth. At its base was a pool of water, its surface smooth as glass. "This is the pool of reflection," said a voice. Pin and Clara turned to see an old woman, her face lined with age but her eyes sharp and wise. "It grants the deepest desires of those who gaze into it. But beware, the price is steep." Pin stepped forward, his wooden feet clicking against the ground. "I want to be human," he said, his voice trembling. "I want to feel, to love, to live." The old woman studied him for a long moment. "And what are you willing to give up for this wish?" Pin hesitated. He had nothing to give but his own existence. "I would give anything," he said finally. The old woman nodded. "Then look into the pool." Pin approached the pool and gazed into its depths. The water shimmered, and he saw himself reflected, not as a puppet, but as a human. His heart swelled with hope. But then the image shifted, and he saw Clara, her face filled with sorrow. He saw the workshop, now empty and lifeless. He saw the stories he had loved, fading into nothingness. The old woman's voice echoed in his mind. "To become human, you must give up what makes you unique. Your immortality, your craftsmanship, your very essence. Are you prepared to lose yourself to gain humanity?" Pin's heart ached. He had spent so long dreaming of becoming human, but now he realized that his journey had given him something precious, a connection to Clara, to the stories, to the world. To give that up would be to lose everything. In the end, Pin made his choice. He stepped back from the pool and turned to Clara. "I don't want to be human," he said. "Not if it means losing who I am." Clara smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "You've always been more than a puppet, Pin. You have a heart, even if it's made of wood." The old woman nodded approvingly. "Wisdom is the first step to true humanity. Perhaps you are already more human than you realize." As they left the forest, Pin felt a sense of peace. He would never be human, but that no longer mattered. He had found something far more valuable, a place in the world, a purpose, and a friend who saw him for who he truly was. And so, the puppet who dreamed of becoming human discovered that he didn't need to change to find happiness. He was enough, just as he was. In the heart of the sprawling, labyrinthine city of Veridon, where the streets were alive with the hum of activity, and the air was thick with the scent of street food and incense, there existed a market unlike any other. Known as the Phantom Market, it was a place of mystery and intrigue, its stalls filled with curiosities that defied explanation. Ancient artifacts, strange trinkets, and items that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. But what set the Phantom Market apart from other markets was its currency: memories. Here, memories were traded like goods, bought and sold by those who sought to forget or to remember. The market was said to appear only on the nights of the new moon, when the sky was at its darkest and the veil between worlds was thinnest. It was a place of shadows and whispers, where the boundaries between reality and illusion blurred. The stalls were manned by figures cloaked in darkness, their faces hidden beneath hoods and masks. They spoke in low, melodic tones, their voices carrying the weight of centuries. Among the city's inhabitants was a young woman named Alara, a historian and folklorist who had dedicated her life to uncovering the secrets of Veridin. Alara had always been fascinated by the tales of the Phantom Market, her imagination captivated by the idea of a place where memories could be traded. She had spent years researching the market, poring over old texts and interviewing those who claimed to have visited it. But despite her efforts, the truth behind the market remained elusive. One evening, as the new moon rose and the city was bathed in darkness, Alara felt a strange pull, a sense that the Phantom Market was near. She made her way to the outskirts of the city, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and fear. The air was thick with the scent of incense and the sound of distant whispers. She pushed open a creaking gate and stepped inside, her breath catching at the sight before her. The market was even more beautiful than she had imagined, its stalls lit by lanterns that glowed with an eerie, otherworldly light. The air was filled with the scent of spices and the sound of low, melodic chanting. Alara wandered through the stalls, her fingers brushing against the curiosities on display. She saw jars filled with swirling colored smoke, each one labeled with a name and a date. She saw mirrors that reflected not the present, but the past, their surfaces rippling with images of long-forgotten events. And then she saw something that made her heart skip a beat, a stall filled with memories, each one contained within a small glass vial. The stall was manned by a figure cloaked in darkness, their face hidden beneath a hood. They spoke in a low, melodic voice, their words carrying the weight of centuries. "Welcome, traveler," they said. "What memories do you seek?" Ilara's mind raced. She knew that the market was a place of danger, where the boundaries between reality and illusion blurred. But she also knew that it was a place of opportunity, where the secrets of the past could be uncovered. She approached the stall, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and fear. "I seek the memory of my mother," she said, her voice trembling. "She died when I was young, and I have only vague recollections of her. I want to remember her, to see her face again." The figure nodded, their expression hidden beneath the hood. They said, "The memory of a loved one is a precious thing," they said, "but it comes at a cost. What are you willing to trade?" Alara hesitated, her mind racing. She knew that the market traded in memories, that the cost of one memory was another. But what memory could she part with? What part of herself was she willing to lose? "I will trade the memory of my first love," she said, her voice steady. "It is a memory that brings me pain, a memory I would rather forget." The figure nodded, their expression hidden beneath the hood. They reached into the stall and pulled out a small glass vial filled with swirling, colored smoke. "This is the memory of your mother," they said. "Take it, and the memory of your first love will be gone." Alara took the vial, her fingers trembling as she held it up to the light. She felt a surge of energy, a force that seemed to flow through her, filling her with a sense of power and vitality. But as the energy coursed through her, she also felt something else. a deep, aching sadness that seemed to come from within. It was as if the memory of her first love had been a part of her, a part that had been waiting to be set free. Elara returned to the city, her heart heavy but her spirit lighter, knowing that she had found the memory of her mother. But as the days turned into weeks, she began to notice something strange. The world around her seemed to lose its color, its vibrancy. The laughter of children, the warmth of the sun, the beauty of the stars, all of it seemed dull and lifeless. She realized that the memory of her first love had been a part of her, a part that had brought her joy and happiness. But Elara was determined to see her mother again, to hold her in her arms and tell her how much she loved her. She knew that the memory was her only hope, her only chance to bring her back. And so she continued to hold on to the vial, even as the world around her grew darker and colder. One night, as Elara sat by the fire, she felt a strange pull, a sense that her mother was near. She closed her eyes and focused on her, on the memory of her smile, the sound of her laughter. And then she saw her, standing before her, her form faint and translucent, her eyes filled with a mixture of love and sorrow. "Elara," she whispered, her voice soft and trembling, "why have you done this? Why have you cursed yourself for me?" Tears streamed down Elara's face as she reached out to her fingers brushing against her cold, ethereal form. "I couldn't let you go," she said. "I couldn't live without you." Her mother's gaze grew distant, as if she were looking into a past that Elara could not see. "The memory has cursed you," she said. "It has taken your happiness, your joy. You must let it go, Elara. You must let me go." Elara's heart broke as she watched her, the weight of her regret crushing her. She had thought that the memory would bring her closer to her mother, but instead it had only driven them further apart. She knew that she had to let go of the memory, to break the curse and set herself free. With a heavy heart, Elara reached for the vial, her fingers trembling as she held it up to the light. She felt a surge of energy, a force that seemed to flow through her, filling her with a sense of peace and clarity. The world around her seemed to come alive, its colors vibrant and its sounds clear. But as the memory of her mother began to fade, her form dissolving into the air, Elara reached out to her, her heart pounding with a mixture of love and sorrow. "I will always love you," she whispered, her voice trembling. And then she was gone, her presence a memory that would haunt Elara for the rest of her days. Elara stood there for a long time, her heart heavy but her spirit lighter, knowing that she had done the right thing. She knew that the memory was a curse, a tool that could only bring pain and sorrow. And though she would always miss her mother, she knew that she had to live her life, to find joy and happiness in the world around her. The Phantom Market remained a place of mystery and fear, a destination for those seeking answers to questions best left unasked. But for Elara, it was more than just a market. It was a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always a chance for redemption. And as she walked away from the market, she knew that she would carry its light with her, a reminder of the power of the human spirit to overcome even the darkest of curses. In a remote valley nestled between towering mountains and dense forests, there flowed a river unlike any other. Its waters were crystal clear, reflecting the sky like a mirror, and its gentle currents carried with them a sense of timelessness. But what made this river truly extraordinary was its bank, a stretch of land that glowed under the moonlight, casting an ethereal light that could be seen for miles. The locals called it the Moonlit Shore, and it was said to be a place of magic and mystery. The riverbank's glow was not constant. It only appeared on nights when the moon was full, and even then, its intensity varied. Some nights it was a soft, silvery light that seemed to hum with quiet energy. Other nights it blazed like a beacon, illuminating the entire valley. The phenomenon had been occurring for as long as anyone could remember, and though many had tried to explain it, no one had ever succeeded. Some believed it was the work of fairies, while others thought it was a sign from the gods. But for the people of the nearby village, it was simply a part of life, a reminder that there were still wonders in the world. The village, known as Lumina, was a small, close-knit community that thrived on the river's bounty. The river provided fish, fresh water, and fertile soil for their crops. But more than that, it was a source of inspiration. The villagers were storytellers, artists, and musicians, and the moonlit shore featured prominently in their tales and songs. They spoke of lovers who met by its light, of travelers who found solace in its glow, and of spirits who danced along its edge. One such villager was a young woman named Alara. She had grown up hearing stories of the moonlit shore, and it had always held a special place in her heart. Her grandmother, a wise woman named Marin, had often taken her to the riverbank on full moon nights, telling her stories of the ancient ones who had once lived there. The glow is a gift, Marin would say, a reminder that even in the darkest times there is light. But as Alara grew older, she began to notice something strange. The glow of the riverbank was fading. Each full moon, it seemed a little dimmer, a little less vibrant. At first, she thought it was her imagination, but when she mentioned it to the other villagers, they admitted they had noticed it too. No one knew why it was happening, but there was a growing sense of unease. The moonlit shore was more than just a beautiful phenomenon. It was a symbol of hope and magic. If it were to disappear, what would become of their village? Determined to uncover the truth, Ilara began to spend more time by the river. She would sit on the bank for hours, watching the water and listening to its whispers. She studied the plants that grew along the shore, searching for clues, and she talked to the elders, hoping to find answers in their stories. One night, as she sat by the river under a full moon, she noticed something she had never seen before. The glow of the riverbank was not uniform. In certain spots it was brighter, almost pulsating, while in others it was barely visible. Curious, she followed the brighter patches, her footsteps guided by the light. They led her to a small, hidden grove, where the trees formed a natural archway. In the center of the grove was a stone pedestal, and on it rested a crystal, a large, luminous gem that seemed to radiate the same silvery light as the riverbank. Ilara approached the crystal cautiously, her heart pounding. As she drew closer, she felt a strange energy emanating from it, warm and inviting. She reached out to touch it, and the moment her fingers made contact, a flood of images filled her mind. She saw the valley as it had been centuries ago, untouched by human hands. She saw the ancient ones, beings of light and shadow, who had once lived there. And she saw the crystal, glowing brightly, as they placed it on the pedestal, enchanted in a language she could not understand. When the vision faded, Alara understood. The crystal was the source of the riverbank's glow. It was a relic of the ancient ones, a piece of their magic that had been left behind. But over time, its power had waned, and with it, the glow of the moonlit shore. Alara knew she had to do something. She couldn't let the light fade completely, but how could she restore the crystal's power? She returned to the village and sought out her grandmother, hoping Marin's wisdom would guide her. Marin listened carefully to Alara's story, her eyes filled with a mixture of pride and concern. "The crystal is a living thing," she said. "It draws its power from the world around it, from the moon, the river, and the life that thrives here. But it also needs something more. It needs a connection to the heart of the valley, to the people who call it home." Ilara thought for a moment. What if we gave it something? A piece of ourselves, our stories, our memories? Marin smiled. That might just work. The next full moon, the entire village gathered by the riverbank. They brought with them tokens of their lives, a lock of hair, a piece of jewelry, a handwritten letter. One by one, they placed their offerings at the base of the pedestal, sharing stories and memories as they did so. Elara was the last to approach. She placed her hand on the crystal and closed her eyes, pouring her heart into it. She thought of her grandmother, of the villagers, of the valley she loved so much. And as she did, the crystal began to glow brighter, its light spreading across the riverbank like a wave. When she opened her eyes, the moonlit shore was ablaze with light, more radiant than it had been in decades. The villagers cheered, their voices echoing through the valley. And as they celebrated, Elara felt a deep sense of peace. The crystal's power had been restored. But more than that, the bond between the villagers and the land had been strengthened. From that day on, the moonlit shore became a place of pilgrimage. People from far and wide came to see its glow and to leave their own offerings at the pedestal. The crystal, now a symbol of unity and hope, continued to shine, its light a reminder of the magic that exists in the world. And Elara, though she had played a pivotal role in restoring the light, remained humble. She knew that the true magic of the moonlit shore lay not in the crystal, but in the hearts of those who cherished it. For as long as they remembered, the riverbank would glow, a beacon of light in the darkness, a testament to the power of love, memory, and the enduring connection between people and the land they call home. In the heart of a crumbling, ivy-covered mansion on the edge of a sleepy town, there lived a ghost named Arya. She was no ordinary ghost. While most spirits were bound to places or objects, Arya was bound to music, specifically to songs that had been forgotten by the world. Her existence was a melody without a listener, a verse without a voice, a haunting refrain that echoed through the empty halls of the mansion. She was the ghost of forgotten songs, and her story was as tragic as it was beautiful. Arya had once been a singer, her voice renowned throughout the land. She had performed in grand theaters and humble taverns alike, her songs weaving tales of love, loss, and longing. But her fame had come at a cost. She had poured her soul into her music, and when her voice faded and her songs were no longer sung, she had faded too. Yet she could not move on. Her spirit lingered, tethered to the melodies that had defined her life. The mansion, once a vibrant hub of music and laughter, had fallen into disrepair. Its grand piano was covered in dust, its strings rusted and broken. The sheet music that had once filled its halls had yellowed with age, the notes fading into obscurity. But Arya remained, her presence felt in the faint strains of music that drifted through the air on quiet nights. The townsfolk whispered of her, calling her the songbird ghost, and few dared to venture near the mansion. One day, a young musician named Elias arrived in the town. He was a wanderer, carrying nothing but his violin and a heart full of dreams. He had heard the legends of the songbird ghost and was determined to uncover the truth. Music was his life, and the idea of forgotten songs resonated deeply with him. He believed that every melody, no matter how old or obscure, deserved to be heard. Elias approached the mansion with a mix of trepidation and excitement. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying wood, and the silence was almost oppressive. But as he stepped inside, he heard it, a faint, haunting melody that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. It was a song he had never heard before, yet it felt familiar, as if it had been waiting for him all along. He followed the music through the labyrinthine halls, his violin clutched tightly in his hand. The melody grew louder, more intricate, until he found himself in a grand ballroom. The room was bathed in the soft glow of moonlight, and in the center stood a figure, a woman, her form translucent and shimmering like mist. She was singing, her voice a blend of sorrow and beauty that brought tears to Elias's eyes. When the song ended, the ghost turned to him, her eyes filled with a mixture of curiosity and longing. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice echoing like a distant memory. "I'm Elia," he replied, his voice trembling. "I'm a musician. I heard your song, and I had to find you. Arya smiled, a bittersweet expression that spoke of centuries of loneliness. You are the first to listen in a very long time. Over the following days, Elias and Arya formed an unlikely bond. He would visit the mansion every evening, his violin in hand, and they would play together. Arya's voice, though ethereal, was as powerful as ever, and Elias's violin added a new dimension to her songs. Together, they brought the forgotten melodies to life, filling the mansion with music once more. But as their friendship deepened, Elias began to notice something strange. The more they played, the more Arya's form seemed to solidify. Her voice grew stronger, her presence more tangible. It was as if the music was restoring her, piece by piece. Yet there was a sadness in her eyes that Elias couldn't ignore. One night as they sat by the grand piano, Arya finally shared her story. She told him of her life as a singer, of the songs she had written and the love she had lost. She spoke of the moment she realized her music was fading into obscurity and how her spirit had become trapped in the mansion, bound to the forgotten songs. I thought I would be here forever, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But now with you, I feel like I might finally be free. Elias's heart ached for her. What can I do to help you? Arya looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and sorrow. You must play my songs, not just here, but out in the world. Let them be heard again, and perhaps my spirit can find peace. Elias vowed to fulfill her wish. He spent weeks transcribing Arya's songs, his fingers aching as he worked tirelessly to capture every note, every lyric. When he was finally ready, he left the mansion and began to perform her music in the town square, in taverns and at festivals. The songs, once forgotten, began to spread like wildfire. People were captivated by their beauty, and soon Arya's melodies were on everyone's lips. As the songs gained popularity, Elias noticed a change in the mansion. The air grew lighter, the shadows less oppressive, and one night when he returned to the ballroom, Arya was gone. But her presence lingered in the music, in the notes that now filled the world. Elias knew that Arya had found her peace. Her songs, once forgotten, had been given new life, and with them, her spirit had been set free. But he also knew that her legacy would live on, not just in the music, but in the hearts of those who heard it. Years passed and Elias became a renowned musician, known for his hauntingly beautiful melodies. But he never forgot Arya. He would often return to the mansion, now a place of pilgrimage for musicians and music lovers alike. And though Arya was no longer there, her songs echoed through its halls, a reminder of the ghost who had haunted forgotten songs and the musician who had given them new life. And so the legend of the songbird ghost lived on, not as a tale of sorrow, but as a testament to the power of music and the enduring spirit of those who create it. For in the end, Arya had not just been a ghost, she had been a melody, a verse, a refrain that would never be forgotten. In the coastal town of Seabreeze, where the salty air carried the cries of gulls and the crashing waves were a constant lullaby, there existed a legend that had been whispered among the townsfolk for generations. It was the legend of the Tempest Library, a mysterious structure that appeared only during the fiercest storms, its towering spires and ancient stone walls emerging from the mist like a phantom. The library was said to house books that contained the forgotten knowledge of the world, tomes that held secrets too powerful to be known by mortal minds. But the library was also a place of danger, for it was guarded by forces that did not take kindly to intruders. The legend had its roots in the town's history, in a time when Seabreeze was a bustling port, and the sea was both a source of life and a bringer of death. The library had been built by a reclusive scholar named Alaric Stormwind, a man who had dedicated his life to the pursuit of knowledge. Alaric had amassed a vast collection of books, many of which were said to contain forbidden knowledge. But as the years passed, the library had vanished, its location lost to time and memory. It was said that Alaric had used his knowledge to bind the library to the storms, ensuring that it would only appear when the elements were at their most fierce. Among the townsfolk was a young woman named Lila, a bookbinder and historian who had always been fascinated by the legend of the Tempest Library. Lila had spent her childhood listening to the tales of the library, her imagination captivated by the idea of a place where forgotten knowledge was kept. She had always felt a deep connection to books, often losing herself in their pages for hours on end. But as she grew older, her curiosity about the Tempest Library grew, and she became determined to find it. One evening, as the sky darkened and the wind began to howl, Lila felt a strange pull, a sense that the library was near. She made her way to the cliffs overlooking the sea, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and fear. The storm was fierce, the rain lashing against her skin, and the wind threatening to knock her off her feet. But as she reached the edge of the cliffs, she saw it, the Tempest Library, its spires rising from the mist like a beacon. The library was even more beautiful than she had imagined, its stone walls weathered by time and its windows glowing with a soft, otherworldly light. Lila approached the library, her footsteps echoing in the empty streets. She pushed open the heavy wooden doors and stepped inside, her breath catching at the sight before her. The library was a labyrinth of shelves, its walls lined with books of every size and color. The air was filled with the scent of old paper and ink, and the sound of the storm outside was muffled by the thick stone walls. Lila wandered through the shelves, her fingers brushing against the spines of the books. She felt a sense of awe and reverence, as if she had stepped into a sacred place. But as she explored, she began to notice something strange. The books were not just ordinary books. They were filled with knowledge that defied explanation, with secrets that had been lost to time. She saw books that contained the histories of forgotten civilizations, tomes that held the secrets of alchemy and magic, and scrolls that detailed the inner workings of the universe. It was as if the library had collected the knowledge of the world, preserving it for those who were brave enough to seek it out. Lila's mind raced. She knew that the library was more than just a repository of knowledge. It was a powerful artifact, a tool that could unlock the secrets of the universe. But she also knew that it was a place of danger, for it was guarded by forces that did not take kindly to intruders. Determined to uncover the truth, Lila decided to explore the library, hoping to find some clue that would explain its origins. She made her way through the shelves, her footsteps echoing in the empty halls. The library was filled with strange artifacts, ancient books, strange trinkets, and paintings that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. But it was in the center of the library that she found what she was looking for, a large, ornate book, its cover embossed with strange symbols and patterns. The book was titled The History of the Tempest Library, and as Lila opened it, she felt a surge of energy, a force that seemed to pull her into the pages. The world around her blurred, and for a moment, she felt as though she were falling. When her vision cleared, she found herself standing in a vast, open plain, its surface covered in a thick layer of snow. The air was filled with the scent of pine and the sound of distant laughter. She realized that she was inside one of the dreams, a world created by the subconscious mind of one of the townsfolk. Lila wandered through the dream, her footsteps crunching on the frozen ground. She saw a young boy running through the snow, his laughter echoing in the air. She saw a woman standing on the edge of a cliff, the wind whipping through her hair as she gazed out at the horizon. And then she saw something she had long since forgotten, a dream she had had as a child, a dream of a city made of light, its towers reaching into the sky, and its streets filled with people who glowed like stars. Tears streamed down Lila's face as she watched the scenes play out, the dream's surface rippling like water. She reached out, her fingers brushing against the cool, smooth surface, and for a moment, she thought she could feel the dreams, their energy pulsing through her. And then the dream began to fade, its surface dissolving into the reflection of the room. Lila stood there, her breath coming in short, panicked gasps, her heart pounding in her chest. She had seen her forgotten dreams, had confronted the world she had once visited in her sleep. But the knowledge was a heavy burden, one that she would carry for the rest of her life. Mrs. Penelope stepped forward, her eyes filled with compassion. "You have seen what you needed to see," she said. "But remember, the window does not judge. It only reveals. What you do with that knowledge is up to you." Lila nodded, her mind racing. She knew that she could not change the past, but she could honor her dreams, could live her life in a way that would make them proud. She turned to leave, her heart heavy but her spirit lighter, knowing that she had faced her forgotten dreams and survived. But as she stepped out into the night, she couldn't shake the feeling that the window was still watching her, its surface gleaming with an eerie light. She knew that the window of forgotten dreams would always be a part of her, a reminder of the choices she had made and the lessons she had learned. And so Lila walked away from the dreamer's cottage, her footsteps echoing in the empty streets. She knew that she would never forget the window, that its reflection would always be with her, a part of her soul. But she also knew that she had found a measure of peace, a sense of closure that had eluded her for so long. The window of forgotten dreams remained in the cottage, its surface clear and unbroken, waiting for the next person to gaze into its depths. And though its power was great, its true horror lay in the truths it revealed, the dreams it forced its viewers to confront. For those who looked into the window, there was no escape, no turning back. They were left with the knowledge of their forgotten dreams, a reflection of their soul that would haunt them for the rest of their days. But for Lila, the window was more than just a curse. It was a gift, a chance to confront her past and find redemption. And as she walked away from the cottage, she knew that she would carry its reflection with her, a reminder of the power of dreams and the strength of the human spirit. The window of forgotten dreams remained a place of mystery and fear, a destination for those seeking answers to questions best left unasked. But for Lila, it was more than just a window. It was a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always a chance for redemption. And as she walked away from the cottage, she knew that she would carry its light with her, a reminder of the power of the human spirit to overcome even the darkest of curses. In the quiet, secluded town of Eldermere, nestled between rolling hills and dense ancient forests, there existed a house that was both a marvel and a mystery. Known as the Dreamer's Cottage, it was a place of eerie beauty, its ivy-covered walls and gabled roof giving it the appearance of a storybook dwelling. But what set the Dreamer's Cottage apart from other houses was a single window, a large, ornate window with stained glass that depicted scenes of fantastical landscapes and mythical creatures. The window was known as the Window of Forgotten Dreams, and it was said to show scenes from the dreams of those who had long since forgotten them. The legend of the window had been passed down through generations, its origins shrouded in mystery. Some said that the window had been crafted by a reclusive artist who had the ability to capture dreams in glass. Others believed that it was a relic from a forgotten civilization, a tool used by shamans to explore the subconscious. But the most popular tale was that of a powerful sorcerer who had cursed the window, binding the dreams of the town's inhabitants to its glass and condemning them to be forgotten. Among the townsfolk was a young woman named Alara, a dreamer and an artist who had always been fascinated by the Window of Forgotten Dreams. Alara had spent her childhood listening to the tales of the window, her imagination captivated by the idea of dreams being trapped in glass. She had always felt a deep connection to her dreams, often waking with vivid memories of fantastical landscapes and strange otherworldly creatures. But as she grew older, her dreams began to fade. their details slipping through her fingers like sand. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky was painted in hues of orange and purple, Ilara made her way to the dreamer's cottage. The air was crisp, the scent of fallen leaves and damp earth filling her senses. She pushed open the creaking gate and stepped inside, her breath catching at the sight before her. The cottage was even more beautiful up close, its walls covered in ivy and its windows gleaming in the dim light. Ilara approached the window of forgotten dreams, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and unease. The stained glass depicted scenes of fantastical landscapes, rolling hills covered in flowers of every color, towering mountains that reached into the clouds, and vast oceans filled with creatures that defy description. But as she looked closer, she noticed something strange. The scenes were moving, shifting and changing as if they were alive. Ilara reached out to touch the glass, her fingers brushing against the cool, smooth surface. As she did, the scenes began to change, the landscape shifting to reveal new, unfamiliar worlds. She saw herself as a child, running through a field of golden wheat, her laughter echoing in the air. She saw herself as a young woman, standing on the edge of a cliff, the wind whipping through her hair as she gazed out at the horizon. And then she saw something she had long since forgotten, a dream she had had as a child, a dream of a city made of light, its towers reaching into the sky, and its streets filled with people who glowed like stars. Tears streamed down Ilara's face as she watched the scenes play out, the window's surface rippling like water. She realized that the window of forgotten dreams was not just a window. It was a portal, a gateway to the subconscious. It was showing her the dreams she had forgotten, the world she had once visited in her sleep. But as she watched, she began to notice something strange. The scenes were not just from her dreams. They were from the dreams of others, the townsfolk of Eldermere. She saw a young boy dreaming of flying through the clouds, a woman dreaming of a garden filled with flowers that sang, and an old man dreaming of a library filled with books that told the stories of his life. The window was a repository of dreams, a place where the subconscious minds of the town's inhabitants were stored. Ilara's mind raced. She knew that the window was more than just a curiosity. It was a powerful artifact, a tool that could unlock the secrets of the subconscious. But she also knew that it was a prison, a place where dreams were trapped and forgotten. Determined to uncover the truth, Ilara decided to explore the cottage, hoping to find some clue that would explain the window's origins. She made her way through the rooms, her footsteps echoing in the empty halls. The cottage was filled with strange artifacts, ancient books, strange trinkets, and paintings that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. But it was in the attic that she found what she was looking for, a dusty leather-bound journal, its pages filled with notes and sketches. The journal belonged to the cottage's previous owner, a man named Elias Thorne. Elias had been a dreamer and an artist, his mind filled with visions of fantastical worlds. He had created the window of forgotten dreams as a way to capture his dreams, to preserve them in glass so that they would never be forgotten. But as he worked, he began to notice something strange. The window was not just capturing his dreams. It was capturing the dreams of others, drawing them in like a magnet. Elias had tried to stop the window, to break the connection between it and the dreams of the townsfolk. But the window was too powerful, its magic too strong. In the end, he had been forced to abandon the cottage, leaving the window behind as a reminder of his failure. Ilara felt a surge of sympathy for Elias, his plight a reminder of the dangers of unchecked creativity. She knew that the window was a powerful tool, but it was also a dangerous one. It had the power to unlock the secrets of the subconscious, but it also had the power to trap those secrets, to bind them to the glass and condemn them to be forgotten. Determined to break the window's hold on the dreams of the townsfolk, Ilara decided to confront the window. to face the dreams it had trapped and set them free. She returned to the window, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and fear. She placed her hand on the glass, her fingers brushing against the cool, smooth surface. As she did, the scenes began to change, the landscape shifting to reveal new, unfamiliar worlds. Ilara focused her thoughts on the dreams, on the worlds she had once visited in her sleep. She felt a surge of energy, a force that seemed to pull her into the glass. The world around her blurred, and for a moment, she felt as though she were falling. When her vision cleared, she found herself standing in a vast open plain, its surface covered in a thick layer of snow. The air was filled with the scent of pine and the sound of distant laughter. She realized that she was inside one of the dreams, a world created by the subconscious mind of one of the townsfolk. Ilara wandered through the dream, her footsteps crunching on the frozen ground. She saw a young boy running through the snow, his laughter echoing in the air. She saw a woman standing on the edge of a cliff, the wind whipping through her hair as she gazed out at the horizon. And then she saw something she had long since forgotten, a dream she had had as a child, a dream of a city made of light, its towers reaching into the sky, and its streets filled with people who glowed like stars. Tears streamed down Ilara's face as she watched the scenes play out, the dream's surface rippling like water. She reached out, her fingers brushing against the cool, smooth surface. And for a moment, she thought she could feel the dreams, their energy pulsing through her. And then, the dream began to fade, its surface dissolving into the reflection of the room. Ilara stood there, her breath coming in short, panicked gasps, her heart pounding in her chest. She had seen her forgotten dreams, had confronted the world she had once visited in her sleep. But the knowledge was a heavy burden, one that she would carry for the rest of her life. Mrs. Penelope stepped forward, her eyes filled with compassion. "You have seen what you needed to see," she said. "But remember, the window does not judge. It only reveals. What you do with that knowledge is up to you." Ilara nodded, her mind racing. She knew that she could not change the past, but she could honor her dreams, could live her life in a way that would make them proud. She turned to leave, her heart heavy but her spirit lighter, knowing that she had faced her forgotten dreams and survived. But as she stepped out into the night, she couldn't shake the feeling that the window was still watching her, its surface gleaming with an eerie light. She knew that the window of forgotten dreams would always be a part of her, a reminder of the choices she had made and the lessons she had learned. And so, Ilara walked away from the dreamer's cottage, her footsteps echoing in the empty streets. She knew that she would never forget the window, that its reflection would always be with her, a part of her soul. But she also knew that she had found a measure of peace, a sense of closure that had eluded her for so long. The window of forgotten dreams remained in the cottage, its surface clear and unbroken, waiting for the next person to gaze into its depths. And though its power was great, its true horror lay in the truths it revealed, the dreams it forced its viewers to confront. For those who looked into the window, there was no escape, no turning back. They were left with the knowledge of their forgotten dreams, a reflection of their soul that would haunt them for the rest of their days. But for Ilara, the window was more than just a curse. It was a gift, a chance to confront her past and find redemption. And as she walked away from the cottage, she knew that she would carry its reflection with her, a reminder of the power of dreams and the strength of the human spirit. The window of forgotten dreams remained a place of mystery and fear, a destination for those seeking answers to questions best left unasked. But for Ilara, it was more than just a window. It was a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always a chance for redemption. And as she walked away from the cottage, she knew that she would carry its light with her, a reminder of the power of the human spirit to overcome even the darkest of curses. In the heart of the bustling city of Veridon, where the streets were alive with the hum of activity and the air was thick with the scent of street food and exhaust fumes, there existed a small, unassuming antique shop tucked away in a narrow alley. The shop, known as Eldritch Relics, was a place of mystery and intrigue, its windows filled with an eclectic array of curiosities, ancient books, strange trinkets, and artifacts from distant lands. The shop's owner, an elderly man named Mr. Alaric, was a figure of equal mystery, his eyes always gleaming with a knowing light, as if he held secrets too vast to be spoken. Among the many oddities in the shop, there was one item that stood out, though it was often overlooked by casual browsers. It was a mirror, its frame crafted from dark, polished wood, intricately carved with symbols and patterns that seemed to shift and change when viewed from different angles. The mirror's surface was smooth and clear, reflecting the world with a clarity that was almost unnerving. A small, faded tag hung from it, bearing the words, "The Mirror of Regret. Beware the reflection of the soul." The mirror had been in the shop for as long as anyone could remember, its origins unknown. Mr. Alaric would often tell curious customers that it was a relic from a forgotten civilization, a tool used by shamans to confront their deepest fears and regrets. But he would always caution them against looking into it, his voice low and serious. "The mirror reveals a person's deepest regret," he would say, "but such knowledge comes at a cost. Once you see your regret, you can never unsee it." Most people dismissed his warnings as mere theatrics, the ramblings of an old man trying to add mystique to his wares. But there were a few who were drawn to the mirror, their curiosity piqued by the promise of self-discovery. Among them was a young woman named Clara Hastings. Clara was a journalist, her days spent chasing stories and uncovering the truth. But beneath her confident exterior, she carried a burden, a secret regret that had haunted her for years. She had heard the tales of the Mirror of Regret, of the truths it revealed, and she had come to Eldritch Relics hoping to confront her past and find closure. On a cool autumn evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky was painted in hues of orange and purple, Clara made her way to the shop. The air was crisp, the scent of fallen leaves and damp earth filling her senses. She pushed open the creaking door and stepped inside, her breath catching at the sight before her. The shop was a labyrinth of curiosities, its shelves lined with artifacts that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. Clara's eyes were drawn to the mirror, its surface gleaming in the dim light. She approached it slowly, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and unease. Mr. Alaric appeared from the shadows, his eyes filled with a strange sadness. "You have come for the mirror," he said, his voice low and trembling. "But be warned, it will show you what you least wish to see." Clara nodded, her determination unwavering. "I need to know," she said. "I need to face my regret." Mr. Alaric hesitated, his gaze lingering on the mirror. Then with a sigh, he stepped aside, allowing Clara to approach. She stood before the mirror, her reflection staring back at her with an intensity that made her shiver. She took a deep breath and looked into the mirror, her eyes locking with those of her reflection. At first, nothing happened. The mirror's surface remained clear, reflecting the room behind her. But then, slowly, the image began to change. The room faded, replaced by a scene from Clara's past, a moment she had tried to forget, a moment that had haunted her for years. She saw herself as a young girl standing in a hospital room. Her mother lay in the bed, her face pale and drawn, her eyes filled with a mixture of love and sorrow. Clara remembered that day, remembered the words she had spoken, words of anger and frustration, words she had regretted ever since. She had been young and scared, unable to cope with the reality of her mother's illness. And in her fear, she had pushed her mother away, had said things she could never take back. The scene in the mirror shifted, showing her mother's face, her eyes filled with tears. "I love you, Clara," she whispered, her voice weak and trembling. "Please don't be angry with me." Clara's heart broke as she watched, the weight of her regret crushing her. She had never apologized, had never told her mother how much she loved her. And now it was too late. Her mother was gone, and Clara was left with the guilt of her words. Tears streamed down Clara's face as she watched the scene play out, the mirror's surface rippling like water. She reached out, her fingers brushing against the glass, and for a moment she thought she could feel her mother's hand, cold and fragile, reaching back. And then the mirror's surface cleared, the scene fading into the reflection of the room. Clara stood there, her breath coming in short, panicked gasps, her heart pounding in her chest. She had seen her deepest regret, had confronted the pain she had buried for so long. But the knowledge was a heavy burden, one that she would carry for the rest of her life. Mr. Alaric stepped forward, his eyes filled with compassion. "You have seen what you needed to see," he said. "But remember, the mirror does not judge. It only reveals. What you do with that knowledge is up to you." Clara nodded, her mind racing. She knew that she could not change the past, but she could honor her mother's memory, could live her life in a way that would make her proud. She turned to leave, her heart heavy but her spirit lighter, knowing that she had faced her regret and survived. But as she stepped out into the night, she couldn't shake the feeling that the mirror was still watching her, its surface gleaming with an eerie light. She knew that the mirror of regret would always be a part of her, a reminder of the choices she had made and the lessons she had learned. And so, Clara walked away from Eldritch Relics, her footsteps echoing in the empty streets. She knew that she would never forget the mirror, that its reflection would always be with her, a part of her soul. But she also knew that she had found a measure of peace, a sense of closure that had eluded her for so long. The mirror of regret remained in the shop, its surface clear and unbroken, waiting for the next person to gaze into its depths. And though its power was great, its true horror lay in the truths it revealed, the regrets it forced its viewers to confront. For those who looked into the mirror, there was no escape, no turning back. They were left with the knowledge of their deepest regret, a reflection of their soul that would haunt them for the rest of their days. But for Clara, the mirror was more than just a curse. It was a gift, a chance to confront her past and find redemption. And as she walked away from the shop, she knew that she would carry its reflection with her, a reminder of the power of regret and the strength of the human spirit.